Episode 589. Well, on December 1st, we opened up registration for next year's Slow Flowers Summit, and I'm really gratified to see how many of you are jumping in on our $100 off early bird ticket offer. Today, I want to talk a little bit more about the Slow Flowers Summit and share about our fantastic host venue, the Bellevue Botanical Garden, which is in Bellevue, Washington, just outside Seattle. And since it's currently holiday season, when the BBG hosts its special winter light show, Garden Delights, I wanted to film a nighttime video tour of the gardens illuminated with twinkling botanical inspired installations. So today you'll meet my friend Joseph Abken, director of the Bellevue Botanical Garden Society, the Public Gardens Programming Membership and Development Arm, as he shares a bit about the history and mission of this very special place. And you'll watch a little video that I filmed last night of Garden Delights. Joseph Abken has an extensive background in management, merchandising, and buying at independent garden centers. And for 5 years, he served as executive director of Krukeberg Botanic Garden in Shoreline, just north of Seattle. Joseph joined the Bellevue Botanical Garden as its society director earlier this year, and he's an avid garden photographer, which is something that has become a daily practice at his job. Let's jump right in and meet Joseph Abken and learn more about the host venue for our 2023 Slow Flowers Summit. And then I'll wrap up our conversation with my video of Garden Delights. The light show, by the way, continues through December 31st. So if you're in the Seattle area, schedule a visit at dusk into the dark parts of the evening when the lights really glow, and you'll see how fun it is when I show that video. I'll save our sponsor thank yous until after the interview. And right now, let's meet Joseph. Welcome back to the Slow Flowers Show with Deborah Prinzing, and I'm so excited to be here on a sunny day in December with my friend Joseph Abken. Hi, Joseph.
Hi, Deborah. It's nice to be here.
Thanks for saying yes. This is sort of a last-minute interview, but we're here at a beautiful place. We're at Bellevue Botanical Garden in Bellevue, Washington. Joseph is the director of the society?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And we are going to be having so much fun together this year.
I'm so excited about the Slow Flower Summit coming here to the garden, so I'm so glad that you asked.
Oh, well, thank you for saying yes. I know it was kind of unconventional that you're doing something like this.
I think it's a big breakaway from the traditional aspect of things that happen here at BBG. That's the acronym we use here. Bellevue Botanical Gardens is a mouthful.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think in general, it's such a genuinely good fit, right? This kind of artistic expression of using natural materials. So that's what I think.
I love that.
That's the resonance there. Yeah.
Well, I know the Bellevue Botanical Garden has, I say to people, it's a world-class garden, world-renowned plantings, and especially like the perennial
border. Yeah.
Right. That if you're in horticulture at all, you've inevitably heard about it or visited or read an article, seen
Absolutely.
photos for sure.
Absolutely. And in my time in public gardens, it's only been about 5.5 years, but my involvement, it's always been the garden that we point to, right? That Bellevue Botanical Garden is kind of like the crown jewel of our public gardens here in the Puget Sound area. It's really an exemplary product. The partnership between a city and a nonprofit like Bellevue Botanical Garden Society, as well as the other 9 partners who are so fundamental to the garden's success. So you point out the perennial border as being a world-class perennial border. That's a volunteer effort.
It's amazing.
The Northwest Perennial Alliance is fully responsible for the planting, the upkeep, the maintenance, and the renovations and improvements. And so to be able to point to that, to be able to say that that's the effort of people, that's people's passion, that's people's commitment. It's not because they're being paid. They're coming and doing this. And it's also the educational aspect of all of these things, right? So at the heart of everything that is BBG, it's education and providing an educational foothold.
Well, I was going to say, to me, it's always been a teaching garden.
Yes.
And so having these partnerships, you mentioned the 9, we'll put a list on our show notes, but it's other plant societies as well, right?
Exactly.
Like the
so we have the Perennial Alliance, but we also have the Northwest Rock Garden Society. We have Washington Native Plant Society. We have, it's just kind of this expansive, involvement with these
Even
other
the
programs.
Fuchsia Society.
The Fuchsia
I
Society,
went crazy over the
yes,
fuchsias when I
and
was
that
here.
is such a beautiful border,
Yeah. Yeah.
So much effort, so much commitment from volunteers.
Yeah. Well, give us sort of a snapshot, because when I call it a world-class botanical garden, I truly mean that, but I know there's sort of the official description that it's in the heart of an urban center, and it's like the central park of this area.
It truly is, I think, the backyard for Bellevue.
Yeah.
The proximity of it to, downtown Bellevue is less than a mile. And we're right here, we're just looking at these buildings
But
from
we
not
can
far.
see the high-rises from here,
Yeah.
which I love.
Yeah, so we're kind of nestled in. We're a part of a larger park system, so we have the added benefit of being a contiguous property with Wilburton Hill. But the Bellevue Botanical Garden is 53 acres of its own, and it's completely surrounded by development. And yet at the same time, when you're here and you're wandering through all of this, it's a very naturalistic feel. So.
Oh, totally. You have no idea you're so close to the freeways, matrix of the city and of the region.
And in my first few weeks here, I saw bobcat, I saw deer. Every day there was all of this wildlife that is present here. So this is a refuge for just everything, from animals to people. And every morning when I come early and walk the garden, I've got the same, faces that I greet each day. So this has become a real, neighborhood gift, I think, for this area.
When you say faces, I know we're getting off track here, but are you talking about people who walk here, or animals, or
people.
flowers?
The same people.
Okay.
I have the same smiling faces, of people every morning. We don't talk a lot, but we smile and we wave and we say good morning, and now we recognize each other, and now it's like a more emphatic wave and hello. But it's like that engagement of recognizing that a place like this within a city like Bellevue has, a long-standing history, a 30-year history, and it was because of the passion of a set group of people. But we have an audience now that has expanded beyond that.
Yeah.
And so people have found their way here and have created their own connections. So whether you're a daily walker or you're a volunteer in the border, you've created your own attachment.
So the walkers have like miles and miles of trails, is that right?
They can, because it will extend outside. But
Okay.
most of them just utilize the inner portion of the
Okay.
garden. But I think they have their routes and they know exactly how
Yeah.
many steps they're going to get.
Yeah, oh, I see. Okay, that makes sense. All right, well, you also greet your favorite trees and shrubs and perennials, because I see your Instagram feed and you're looking for basically what has seasonal interest at any given day.
Exactly. I like to capture the moments. I like to be able to see that in retrospect too as the year goes by. But it's also my way of falling in love with my new place, right? So capturing these moments and creating an intimate attachment to things is how I do that through photography.
Yeah.
So I really look forward to those moments where I get to have that to myself. Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, we go back a long ways. I actually, when last time we talked, I remembered exactly where I met you, in whose garden, on a garden tour. And it was before I moved to Southern California, so it must have been like 2005.
It was about 2005.
Yeah, crazy. And we had, apparently the garden owner, Tina, was a mutual friend.
Yes.
And then you were on the Northwest Horticultural Society board at one point, or not?
I was.
Okay.
I was a board member for about 6 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was too, but I think we didn't
We did
overlap.
not overlap.
Yeah.
No.
We can be in the kind of club of alumni
Exactly.
board members.
Exactly. Yeah.
But just through gardening tours and lectures and the Northwest Flower Garden Festival and plant sales, our paths kept crossing. And your most recent position was the director of a small public garden here in the region. And I just talk a little bit about that experience and how that kind of prepared you for coming to the Bellevue Botanical Garden.
I don't know that it prepared me. It did.
Well, you said yes.
Yes, I did. I said yes.
Maybe it was just like, dive in.
Yeah, just do it. I was really fortunate that the opportunity to be the executive director of Krugerberg Botanic Garden in Shoreline came about. Just to back up a little bit, I was the general manager at Sky Nursery for a number of years, and in that capacity I was also a buyer, and I was traveling a great deal back east. And I would go to Pennsylvania for one of my companies that I was buying from, and they would always take us to public gardens.
Mm-hmm.
And of course,
Which
you have Chanticleer,
so many,
Longwood, Winterthur, and something in me was just like, this is the horticulture that I dream of. Like, this is the horticulture I want to be a part of. And
You mean versus retail?
versus of retail.
Which has its moments.
And
Yeah.
I loved my time at Sky Nursery, and I loved my customers, and I've met people like you and Stacy and so many other people who became really core elements of my circle of influence.
Yeah.
But when the opportunity, at one point I made it a goal. I just said, I want to be in public garden administration, and I didn't know what that looked like at the moment, but I just thought that's where I want to go.
Oh, neat.
And so Krugerberg became an opportunity, and of course they took it on. They brought me into that capacity, and for 5.5 years I was there, and it was seriously, I think, 5.5 best years of my working career that I've ever experienced, because it was such a intimate environment and a very, you know, kind of unique contrast to where I had been for 12 years at Sky Nursery, and I realized that that's really where I thrive.
To talk about Krugerberg and how, you know, Seattle and many regions have this sort of, you know, strand of pearls of a lot of botanical gardens and of varying sizes. And so I would say Krugerberg's on the strand of pearls for the Pacific Northwest. But describe, how would you like to describe it?
You know,
you probably wrote the description.
I would oftentimes call it primitive in comparison to a lot of the other gardens. It's a modest space, and yet at the same time, it has such a unique, special quality to it because it is a naturalistic experience. It's not overly cultivated, it's not overly curated. It has some rough spots and it needs some love, but there's also that charm factor of that kind of minimal amount of influence.
Right.
So a lot goes a long ways when it's just presented perfectly. And I feel like the Krugerberg is just that. It's just nestled in the heart of that community in Richmond Beach. It's completely surrounded by homes, yet when you're there, you feel like you've stepped off into, you know, the woods.
And the scale is residential in a way, right?
It's completely residential. It's 4 acres, but you know, you walk in and then you walk down that little hillside, and you just kind of sink down into the bowl, and you're surrounded by trees and wildlife, and it's really special.
Yeah, and that's sort of like a quintessential slice of the Pacific Northwest.
Completely native plant centric, you know, with a lot of just towering conifers. It really gives you that grand effect in such a small space.
Yeah, I'm glad that was you had such a good run there, because you really got to do some projects that you were passionate about, develop your supporters and your members, and you know, put a stamp on the local landscape.
I think it really helped expand awareness around Krugerberg. We really grew our membership. We grew also our programming, the education aspect of things. At the base of everything that I want to do in my job is that I want there to be this core educational element of things. And that was one of the main things about moving here to the BBG, is that education is the society's #1 strategic goal and plan. It's their edict from the city. You are there to facilitate and amplify education on behalf of the city of Bellevue.
Wow. So Bellevue is it's a city government that is the owner of BBG.
Correct.
And then the society is sort of the education and fundraising arm. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah.
Membership
And donor management, but also anything programmatic. So we are the ones that produce the current event, which is Garden Delights. We also are Arts in the Garden, and we are, you know, anything program driven. So the docent programs, those are all things that come from the society to help support the mission of the garden.
That's what's driving membership then.
Yes.
I mean, people love to come here, but there's no admission charge.
Correct.
So which is a gift to the community, but how do you generate the monetary support you need?
Exactly. So through the membership aspect of things, people kind of come in at the just basic level, but then as they become more attached to the garden and become more involved with things, they become more committed to that in a donor-driven part of that aspect of things. Our membership is pretty robust.
Can you say how many members you have, or do you know?
We have a little over 2,000 members.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
It's impressive.
And I bet you that, like other botanical gardens that I've heard anecdotally, there was a lot of growth during COVID because people wanted to be outdoors. And
I think all botanic gardens experienced kind of an uptick. While we kind of initially all shut down, once we realized that our outdoor spaces were safe, it really became that refuge during a really difficult time. And so people began to develop that recognition and understanding of the value of places like this in their communities, because they cannot go away. They have to be here, you know. And so that commitment, I think we saw a nice, steady commitment at the Krugerberg during that period of time. Our donors were very generous and very consistent. Our membership went up, and I think the same thing happened here in PPG.
And I think that a lot of flower farmers who had the ability to welcome you pick customers, or people to shop at the farm stand, all of those spaces became, in a very similar way, became important and more valued because
Absolutely.
we couldn't be indoors. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So here we are. You said yes when I asked you if we could have the Slow Flowers Summit here at Bellevue Botanical Garden. Actually, as soon as we decided to bring the summit to Seattle, I said, I know exactly where I want it to be, because the facilities here are remarkable. The visitor center, I've attended workshops and presentations, and I've actually also spoken to groups there. And can you just describe why it's so versatile, and why it's perfect for this space, because it has a lot of sustainability values too.
It really does. It's a LEED certified building. Olson Koenig were the architects. They were just here recently after so many years of being in existence. They walked through,
they're kind of rock stars.
They are rock stars, but they also come in and they're like, we see it now, and in the rearview mirror now, perspective of like what we did and what can we do better. And they brought in their students, of course, so they're still using it as an example. But it's such a beautiful building visually to walk up to. It doesn't feel heavy and oppressive when you get here. And yet the versatility of the space is so great, especially the Aaron Education Center, which is where we'll be hosting the summit. Is a very diverse building. It can be broken up into individual classrooms, or it can become a very large symposium-style space with, rolling up doors and bringing the outside in and bringing in tons of sunlight, because it does face south. And of course, a very expansive Packard Plaza space out there as well that can allow us to entertain even further outside of the building. So creating that kind of theater of experience.
Yeah, and it's also like nestled, that even though it's a very tall building, it's in one of the lowest elevation spots, so it sort of doesn't loom. It feels like it's just, you walk upon it and you're like, oh my gosh, this is a cool building. And all the walls open up, and so you're inside listening to a speaker, and then you're
looking out at the rockery. Yeah, I mean, the scale of the space, they really took into a lot of consideration, I feel, like how it's going to fit within the footprint here. And so it does nestle slightly, even though from the front it's, approachable.
It's beautiful. And so we'll be able to have all of our lectures and breakout sessions there. Our meals will happen in and around there, I'm sure. None of that has been confirmed yet. But I think it's kind of a home base. And then the beautiful thing is, on your lunch break or on your coffee break or before or after the summit, you got Bellevue Botanical Garden to come explore. And that's for people's downtime and for wellness, mental health. You've got nature just pulling you outdoors.
It's right there waiting for you. Yeah, you're just a footstep away from the perennial border, or just a short walk to the Yao Japanese Garden. If you really want to get away a little bit.
So special.
And if you really want a great special event, experience, go down to the ravine and cross the footbridge, which is really spectacular. And all of these things.
I've never done that.
Oh, you're kidding.
What happens when you cross the footbridge?
Well, it takes you over to the other side and sends you over towards Wilburton Hill Park.
Okay,
but there's
so it's
also
more like green space.
It is a convenient little loop trail that brings you right back to the bridge if you want.
Okay.
But the bridge is very special.
Everything's done beautifully. Okay, so what is your favorite route to take? And you talked about it in your morning walk, but what would you recommend for the summit guests? I think it's end of June.
Yeah.
It's kind of peak for a lot of things here. Maybe not the dahlias, but we can wait and come back in August or September for that. But do you have a favorite loop?
I really do. I take the path down towards the Yao Garden and go past it, and there's a side trail that takes you off of the gravel path, and it becomes mulch, and the quietness sets in. No more crunchy crunch, right?
And you're kind of in the understory there.
You're in the understory of some big cedars, and it takes you around to the footbridge, and you can either cross the bridge and do the small loop over there, but I can tend to go past it and hit the next little bark trail, where it's, again, just more of that quiet trampling and peacefulness. but then I bring myself back out and then do the main loop around the backside, past the Lost Meadow and back up the hill. You just get such a nice variety of being enclosed as well as being out in the open. It is a spectacular garden at any time of the year.
When I think about the varying topography, you must have so many little microclimates. Even when I think about, oh well, you've got the woodland, but then you have the rockery, which is completely different environment.
Totally different.
It's perfect for any gardener
And
to geek out about.
And the funny thing too is that James and I both are brand new here at the garden, and we were looking at a big map of the garden, and on there's this beautifully displayed body of water, and we have, both of us, looked many, many times for that body of water. It turns out it's seasonal. And so it is full now, and it's very present. But of course, in June and July and August, when we were having some of the driest time of the year, it was completely non-existent.
You're like, what is this, a pretend pond?
Is this a future thing? Are we planning ahead for this? But no, there is an immense amount of water right now all over the Wilburton Hill. We have seasonal ponds everywhere here, which is really fascinating.
So you kind of doing all that rainwater catchment and just keeping it.
And being on top of a hill, it's just collecting. It's in its natural spots here on the hill where they've been collecting water naturally over the years, over the decades. And so they'll all disappear, of course, by the time summer rolls back around. But it really was kind of a funny,
crazy.
Yeah, it was a funny thing. I kept thinking, where am I going to find this big pond?
Is there a lot of like bird life that kind of gathers at those areas now? Or?
There are. The garden is teeming with birds at the moment, especially a lot of the smaller birds who are foraging under the leaves. You can really listen, you can hear them moving around. But we also have a lot of predators, so we have owls and hawks.
And what did you say you saw when you first got here? A coyote?
I saw a bobcat.
A bobcat. Okay, sorry. They're all a feline creature.
At first I was like, "Wow, that's a big house cat." But
they're predators too then.
We have a lot of wildlife here. We have a barred owl right now that's raising a lot of chaos with our guests. Has stolen a number of beanies off of people's heads.
No way.
Yeah, we've had to put up some signs to warn our guests that we have a barred owl that will swoop down. Yeah.
I guess they like bright shiny objects?
I think it's really common, especially this time of year with juvenile barred owls. They really are kind of not fully developed in terms of what's what.
They're kind of playful.
And they are also, I think, a little bit mischievous in that regard. Yeah, so it's not uncommon to be swooped by a barred owl.
Wait, do you think that they see that as a little mouse or a little
I don't know what they think of it
creature?
as, other than just being territorial maybe, and just trying to scare you away. But we have a couple of beanies stuck up in the trees.
That is hysterical. I had no idea. You almost need like a cam, some kind of...
There needs to be a wild...
Yeah, an owl cam.
We have put up a number of signs. If you hear a hoot, scoot. But the problem is he doesn't give me any warning, I don't think. But it's a clever thought, just to make you aware.
I'm going to remember that when I go back out later on. That is hysterical. Well, the reason I asked you about how you move your way through the garden is when Karen and I came to visit you a couple months ago, we showed you the photos of the floral takeover that we did at Filoli, and you just lit up. You were like, oh, we can do that here. And you ran us around looking at all these possible...
Immediately, it was just like, I knew exactly where these things needed to happen.
Yeah, because you have a design sensibility, and I know you've done landscape design in your life, especially for yourself.
Yes.
And being in a retail nursery,
talking
about it constantly, right?
I think I'm a very visual person,
Yeah.
so I always think of, structure and form, and as a photographer, you're always looking at things that way as well. So immediately when I saw those examples, I just could not wait. Yeah.
And at Filoli, a lot of it was indoors, and we had some outdoor installations, but here we're going to have everything from giant tree trunks to lattice fences and arbors, and even like railings. There's so many different ways that our teams of Slow Flowers Summit attendees can, as groups, kind of take over and add their flair to add their flair to this. And I think responding to the site and to what that structure or tree is, some might be a little more formal, and some might be very
wild.
Wooded.
Yeah, I can't wait. I think that
you'll have to shoot them all.
I will. I'm going to have to photograph them all. But I think it's also going to give the guests who come to the garden, it's going to really resonate with people, but it's going to wow them. It's going to just kind of jar them out of their normal, engagement with the garden because it's going to be so dramatic.
I think that's why these sort of, like, we do a botanical couture campaign every year, and why installations are really popular among our members is like you are getting the viewer to look at flowers in a different way and surprise them, and maybe just trigger curiosity. It's not just always in a vase, and and it's natural.
It's theater too,
It
right?
is theater, yes.
There's some magic, I think, behind all that creativity, and I love that notion of getting people to see things differently. I think even in the garden, there are people who just walk through and they really aren't seeing the garden, they're just seeing the space. But that kind of an installation all of a sudden brings that focus into really sharp.
I've been thinking a lot lately about this concept of nature blindness and how in society there is this sort of lack of seeing. And I know that you and James are going to talk about gardens and people and the mission of the garden here, because you're going to be our opening speakers. So I feel like there's something there that you are always urging people to not be blind and to connect with the garden.
I mean, I grew up in such a small rural community, and as a young child or young teen and a teenager, a lot of my time was spent roving on my own, out in the wild, out in the woods. And so my awareness factor of all the things that are around me were both self-protection, so being mindful of rattlesnakes or not getting into poison oak where I grew up was a big problem. But it also...
You kept your eyes open.
You kept your eyes open. You paid attention to where you were walking and what you were doing. But there's also that aspect of what you're doing is that you're becoming more attached and connected to everything that's happening around you. So I'm constantly dialed into a bird moving through the leaves, or something flying overhead, or and I feel like as a society we really have, and it's not an exaggeration to say, very focused to what's in our hands right now, and that's
our
our
little
devices.
devices.
And our devices, and we see it everywhere. And I know that there's real value in those things, and as a user, and I rely on those things myself. But there's such a loss, I feel, that you're not hearing or seeing or experiencing a lot of the naturalness in our world, whether it's in an urban setting or out in the wild. Yeah,
we really have to challenge people to use their senses, and I think that the Slow Flowers Summit attendees are kind of ready for that. They're florists or flower farmers or people working in the floriculture world who just need a pause and need a break, and so that's why I care so much about letting not being in a ballroom at a hotel, which we have done, but I mean, moving in this direction of being in a botanical space, it's just like another layer of experience for people.
Exactly.
So very fun. Tonight, I'm going to stay a little late and take a little video. I don't know how it's going to work, but we're going to try it, of the light show.
Yeah, it's very photogenic.
Okay, so can you describe this?
Garden Delights.
Garden Delights, okay.
I think the most notable thing about this is that it's not really a holiday-specific kind of display.
Right, that's true.
You've got, a core group of volunteers who work pretty much 11 months out of the year to produce this. This is not produced by paid staff, but it's a botanically representational light display. So bluebells or delphinium or sunflowers or corn, there's a whole gamut of botanically displayed lights out there. There are whimsical things. We have Snap the Dragon, and we have a few things we have what's called the critter map for kids to engage with, so they can look for things like the teddy bear or the ladybug or the dragonfly.
Kind of like a scavenger hunt.
Exactly,
Okay.
for the kids as they're doing their thing. But overall, the main aspect of this is the botanical nature of all of the lights. Yeah. So nothing's really up on outlining a living, existing tree. Something has been crafted to look like a pasta or to look like a snapdragon.
Wow.
Yeah, it's impressive.
I came to a workshop once, years ago, where I watched someone demonstrate how these large scale, like upsized bluebells are made, or the rhododendron flowers, it's magical.
It's an incredible amount of technique.
Okay, I'm gonna say what I remember, and you can correct me. It's like you take a strand of Christmas lights, or tree lights, but they're only maybe one color.
Yes.
They're not multicolored, and then they are somehow cluster together to
They
make
just
a flower.
pull them. They take up all of that extra strand and they create a structure.
Really?
Using rebar or floral posts, some sort of floral wire. But then they bring all of that together and cluster them, and they do it in repetition, which creates the individual flower look. But it is an incredible amount of detail and effort. And each year, these creative wunderkinds put together a new element. Somebody will say, we need to create Japanese forest grass. And they'll put together a thought process around that, and they'll be like, this is how it's going to work, and this is what we can do. And we have Japanese forest grass this year in the display.
That's crazy, but that was probably just inspired by the fact that there is
Exactly.
Japanese forest grass in the garden.
They encounter something that they see, and they're like, I think we could make that.
Wow.
And so it really is incredible.
I mean, the thing that I mentioned the rhododendrons, they always impress me, but also the clusters of draping wisteria are insane. And of course, thank goodness you can buy sort of color correct, lavender lights or whatever. Sometimes it's not meant to be an exact replication.
Yeah, exactly. But our group is able to order lights, custom lights from, commercial dealers.
Oh, I didn't know
so
that.
we're not limited to what you can get at True Value,
Okay,
right? Although the lights are getting better, right?
Okay.
But we do have the ability to do commercial ordering, and so they can get a much more customized color tone.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes me feel better.
Gives you a lot more variety.
Speaking of variety, do you have? I'll look up all the stats when I do the walk around because I know there's something about how many lights.
500,000 lights.
What? Oh, you know. Okay.
500,000 lights. And it's 6,400 hours
Of volunteer time.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's an incredible
Yeah.
effort.
I mean, it's a gift to the community, and also I love that it's so bloom centric and horticulture centric. It's not, Santa's elves.
Nope.
Other places do that, and they
We've
do
got the
that well.
poinsettia tree.
Okay.
That's our little nod to Christmas.
Yeah, but even that.
That's horticulture.
Even that, the bracts of the poinsettia are very well represented.
Exactly.
That's cool, and it starts, you said, the Saturday after Thanksgiving?
Yeah, so this year it started on November 26th and will run through December 31st, which is the last Saturday of December. We will be closed on Christmas this year. I think that's a new thing for the organization. But otherwise, it is every night, and it starts at 4:30 until 9 o'clock.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember dragging my boys here. I say dragging because, rain or shine,
Yeah.
people come, and
Yes,
we
they
do get winter drizzle. But I always had the reward afterwards, like, we can go for pizza, or we can go get hot cocoa.
Sweeten the deal.
Yeah, because I love it, and I'm going to try to shoot a little video to share with everybody. But there's lots of photos on your website too.
There
so
are.
I want to make sure when we post this in the show notes at slowflowerspodcast.com, I'll have some photos and videos that I'll get from your team. Because there really is, this is a 4-season garden. It's a 12-month garden. There's something to learn about all the time. So I'm excited.
I just love to go in there and see what they're doing and watch the process. It's been really fun. They're a great group of folks too, because they have a great sense of humor, and they really have had a hard time this year with the weather. Our first opening couple of weeks, we had the snow event. We had heavy wet snow event. We had a lot of rain, and created a lot of headaches and complications. But I just admire their tenacity because they just show up the next morning and they're like, all right, let's get out here and fix this.
It's just, in a way, it's sort of symbolic of what that description. I'm thinking, well, you would say the same thing about the team that's tending to the perennial border.
Absolutely.
They figure it out, and they're well educated. They know how to prune and how to divide and do all the things that you do in a perennial garden. But you couldn't have that garden without volunteers.
No.
Yeah.
No. It is an immense effort. That's a lot of upkeep with a lot of herbaceous material, and just a lot of varying necessities, different needs and aspects of things. And they're just such a fun little core group of problem solvers. I just love coming up to them in the morning when they're huddled out there dealing with something, and they'll ask me for my opinion, and we just kind of come up with this really good solution and how we're going to move forward. And it's really interactive, and just, I don't know. I feel connected now in a way that I hadn't when I first got here, so I love it.
Well, be prepared to answer a lot of questions about what's in bloom, what these plants are. Maybe people who are coming from other parts of the US and Canada, maybe even beyond, who maybe haven't encountered one of our local favorite perennials, and
Yeah.
you'll be getting.
They'll be envious.
Yes. Yes, they will be envious, and that's why we're having it here.
Exactly.
Joseph, thank you so much.
Always a pleasure.
So much fun, and
Yeah.
I just am delighted that we can kind of wrap up the year with this teaser to get people excited about grabbing their registration to come to the summit. Our early bird ticket sales go on till the end of the year, so we're getting a lot of action there, and we'll be featuring interviews with all of our speakers between now and June, but I got Joseph first, so thank you.
You're very welcome.
All right.
Thank
Okay, thank you so much. And right before we wrap up, I want to show you my little video that I filmed last night of Garden Delights. Here we go. Okay, thanks so much for joining us today. Joseph and his colleague, James Gagliardi, the garden director, will give the opening remarks at the Slow Flowers Summit, and it'll kick off our whole experience for 2 full days. Their presentation is called Gardens for People, and Joseph and James will set the tone for our immersive experience at Bellevue Botanical Garden and share the story of this important cultural resource that serves the people of the Pacific Northwest and beyond. And it is for plant lovers. The Bellevue Botanical Garden is celebrating its 30th anniversary this year, and we're really excited about the flowers, the plants, and the people of this beautiful destination. I'm really thrilled that our guests, flower growers, floral designers, and flower gardening enthusiasts, will be inspired by both our program and this very special host setting. Don't forget, early bird discount pricing expires December 31st. So register now to take advantage of our lowest ticket price available. You can learn more at slowflowersummit.com and in our show notes at slowflowerspodcast.com for today's episode 589. And I'll also share the replay of this episode in our podcast show notes next week. Before I go, I'd also like to thank our sponsors who bring this show to you. This show is brought to you by slowflowers.com, the free online directory to more than 850 florists, shops, and studios who design with local, seasonal, and sustainable flowers, and to the farms that grow those blooms. It's the conscious choice for buying and sending flowers. And thank you to our lead sponsor, Farm Grow Flowers. Farm Grow Flowers delivers iconic burlap wrap bouquets and lush, abundant arrangements to customers across the U.S., supporting U.S. flower farms by purchasing more than $10 million of U.S. grown fresh and seasonal flowers and foliage annually. Discover more at farmgrowflowers.com. Thank you to Johnny's Selected Seeds, an employee owned company that provides our industry with the best flower, herb, and vegetable seeds, supplied to farms large and small, and even to backyard cutting gardens like mine. Find the full catalog of flower seeds and bulbs at johnnysseeds.com. Thank you to Mayesh Wholesale Florist. Family owned since 1978, Mayesh is the premier wedding and event supplier in the U.S., and we're thrilled to partner with Mayesh to promote local and domestic flowers, which they source from farms large and small around the U.S. Learn more at mayesh.com. And thank you to the Gardener's Workshop, which offers a full curriculum of online education for flower farmers and farmer florists. Online education is more important than ever, and you'll want to check out the course offerings at thegardenersworkshop.com. The Slow Flowers Show is a member supported endeavor, and I value our loyal members and supporters. If you're new to our weekly show or our long running podcast, check out all of our resources at slowflowerssociety.com. I'm Deborah Prinzing, host and producer of the Slow Flowers Show and the Slow Flowers podcast. And next week, you're invited to join me in putting more slow flowers on the table, one stem, one vase at a time. The content and opinions expressed here are either mine alone or those of my guests alone, independent of any podcast sponsor or other person, company, or organization. Thanks so much for joining us today.